cold wind swept through the outskirts of Cresthill like a dull blade, lingering, silent, but no less painful. As always, this town went to sleep early, but Nathan Griggs, a gaunt man with hollow eyes like an addict, was only just beginning. His rusted gray van rolled quietly over the gravel road. No plates, no headlights, no sound. "Tonight's gonna be a good one," he muttered, licking his cracked lips. "I can smell it." The first house he targeted stood on the edge of the woods, rotting wooden fences, a dim porch light. There, by an old tree, a mutt, white fur speckled with brown, lay half asleep. Nathan clicked the switch. A soft snap came from the handle of his custom-built stun gun. He checked the charge, then gripped it in his left hand. In his right, he held a slab of raw meat, blood still dripping. "Come here, baby. Come to Papa." The dog raised its head, nostrils flaring. One step, then two. Nathan waited. His breath was heavy but silent, eyes fixed. "Good boy. Closer." Zap! A flash of blue electricity struck the dog's neck. It screamed, a long, gut-wrenching wail that didn't sound like an animal at all. Its body twisted, limbs kicking the ground, eyes rolled white, foam bubbling from its mouth. He laughed, a warped, shivering laugh, like he had just made love to the pain itself. "Beautiful. I knew you'd go down easy," he murmured, shoving the limp body into a sack. "Another one for tomorrow's feast." Second time. The next neighborhood had an Alaskan Malamute, fluffy, fat, slow, let loose every night. Nathan had been watching it for days. That night, he scattered a trail of meat crumbs leading straight into a steel neck snare trap, automatic, lined with jagged teeth. The Malamute followed the scent like it was playing a game, trotting, tail wagging, then clang! Metal sank into flesh, jaws of iron snapping tight. A scream exploded instantly, long, raw, choked, almost human. The dog writhed, blood spurting from its throat, hind legs clawing helplessly at the earth. Nathan ran in, eyes gleaming. "Perfect, perfect!" He shouted like a lunatic, filming the moment, laughing until he coughed. "You should see your face, buddy. You're a masterpiece." He slammed the sack shut once the dog was inside. The whimpering inside faded fast. Third time. The last house had a Rottweiler named Max. Not easy, not stupid, and very aware. Nathan slipped into the backyard. Max stood still in the dark, didn't bark, just stared. Nathan raised the stun rod, creeping forward. Max growled low and deep like it came from a cavern. He froze. "Smart boy," he muttered, hand trembling from excitement. "I like the tough ones." The rod crackled. Blue sparks flicked in the dark. Max didn't back down. He roared and lunged. Crack! They collided. Nathan jammed the rod into its ribs. Max shrieked, body twitching, foam flying from his jaws. Nathan stumbled back, blood pouring from a gash on his arm. But he laughed, a sick, delighted laugh. He cradled Max's head as it spasmed and whispered, "You got me good, Max. So good. You're gonna be my favorite." And the long night ended as the van drove away from the neighborhoods. 3 sacks lay in the back. From one there was breathing, shallow, then a soft whine. Nathan switched off the interior lights, stared into the rearview mirror. "Shut up," he muttered. "You're almost free." But then he heard something he'd never heard before. A muffled bark, not of fear, not of pain, but of contempt. He opened his eyes wide. In the darkness of the mirror, he thought he saw 2 red eyes staring back at him. A shiver crawled down his spine as he forced a ghastly smile, trying to convince himself it was nothing. But the sounds came anyway, soft breaths at first, then howls, distant yet echoing endlessly in the hollows of his mind. They came like a creeping fog, each one darker than the last. Nathan Griggs, once proud, triumphant in his nightly hunts, was now haunted. Sleep brought no rest, only torment. Nathan was lying on his mattress in the garage, the stench of blood and dog fur clinging to his skin. The van was still warm from the night's harvest, but he was drained. He fell asleep quickly. In his dream, he was standing in a dark pit, the walls made of chain-link fence, barbed wire woven like veins. Dozens of dogs surrounded him, some familiar, some not. Some were faceless, their eyes hollow and bleeding. Others still had the collars he had ripped off them before the kill. Then the sound started. A howl, long, distant, then dozens more, then hundreds. It shook the ground beneath him. Nathan turned to run, but his feet sank into rotting fur and gnawed bones. The dogs moved closer, not running, just walking, staring. Then he saw it. A massive black dog, easily the size of a man, with eyes like burning coals, stepped forward. It didn't bark, it didn't growl, it smiled, and then it spoke. "You fed us pain, now we feed you ours." It lunged. Nathan woke up screaming, drenched in sweat and blood, his own. His arms were clawed up as if something had gripped them tight. The second night, he refused to sleep. He cleaned his tools obsessively, sharpening the edges of snares that no longer felt satisfying. The dogs in the sacks from last night were already disposed of, but he could still hear them. It wasn't just in his head. He'd hear scratching under the floorboards, behind the walls. Once he opened a cabinet and swore he saw a paw withdraw into the shadows. But worst of all were the mirrors. He started seeing them in every reflection, the faces of dogs, not normal ones, mutilated tongues hanging out, eyes gone white or black or worse, red. Their mouths opened, but they didn't bark. They whispered, "Thief, torturer, meat man." He smashed every mirror in the house, even the microwave door. But their whispers followed. The third night. Nathan's arm still bore the scratch marks from the Rottweiler. He bandaged it, but it festered. The smell of rot clung to him. That night, the van door opened by itself. He didn't hear it. He only noticed when he turned around and saw Max sitting on the garage floor. Not the real Max. This version was wrong. Its fur was torn in strips, one eye dangling, its jaw broken open at an impossible angle. But it sat still, watching. Nathan froze. "Get the hell out," he croaked. Max growled. Nathan swung a pipe at it, but it vanished. Only the sound remained, low growing right behind his ear all night long. Nathan stopped going out, stopped hunting. The tools rusted, the van gathered dust. But it was too late. He had opened something. Every dog he had ever hurt seemed to come back in some form. The small mutt with the broken spine appeared twitching under his bed. The Alaskan with the slit throat stood by the fridge, dripping blood onto the tiles. The faceless ones watched him sleep, if he slept. He began recording everything, desperate to prove he wasn't insane. But when he played the tapes back, there was only howling, no images, no voice, just that endless sound. On the seventh night, the rain came, hard, cold, and black like oil. He boarded up his windows, bolted every door, sat in the center of the living room, holding his stun gun like a cross. And then the barking began. Software, then louder, outside, in the attic, in the walls. Then, from under the floors, Nathan dropped to his knees. "I'm sorry," he sobbed. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I needed to feel something." The lights went out, and from the darkness, a voice he would never forget said, "Now you feel everything." The floor cracked open. From it rose the black dog, its red eyes burning holes through reality. The house vanished around them. The world twisted. The last thing Nathan saw was 100 mouths opening in unison. Then, bite. 1 week later, they found the house empty. No sign of Nathan, only the smell of wet fur and rot. And in the center of the living room, scratched into the wooden floor, "Feed us pain, now we feed." Old Mrs. Killian was taking out the trash when she saw something crawling from the woods behind her barn. Naked, filthy, moving on all fours like a feral animal. At first she thought it was a dog, until it stood up and she saw his face. Nathan Griggs had been missing for a full week, declared dead, vanished, but now he was back, not the same. His skin was torn in patches. Hair had grown unevenly along his spine. His nails had blackened into claws. He no longer wore clothes. Only teeth marks, deep and raw, decorated his arms and neck like jewelry. And his eyes, once gray and sunken, were now a pale, sickly yellow, wild, constantly moving as if tracking prey. He didn't speak. He grew. They locked him in a ward at Cresthill Asylum. He bit 3 nurses the first night. They kept him in restraints, but he chewed through them with human teeth sharpened to points. The doctors whispered rabies, drug psychosis, but blood tests showed no disease. Instead, they found fragments of bone in his stomach, dog bone, still bloody. Fresh. Nathan refused food, except for raw meat. He licked it, gnawed it, swallowed without chewing. They filmed him at night. He didn't sleep. He paced in circles, sniffing corners, growling at shadows, sometimes howling. One night, a staff member leaned too close. Nathan grabbed his head, licked his cheek, and whispered, "You smell like terrier." 2 weeks in, the first tragedy happened. The janitor, Ronald, was found in the hallway, his neck ripped open. Blood trailed down the hall in paw-like patterns, no signs of a break-in. Nathan's cell was still locked, but on the surveillance tape, for one single frame, he was gone. A blur, a shadow with 4 legs. The coroner ruled it a canine mauling, but no dogs had entered the building. In town, people began hearing things. At first, just barking at night, then scratching, claw marks on doors, teeth marks on tires, dead animals hung from trees, and always the sound, howling, so many howls, but never a single dog in sight. They say one boy saw Nathan near the cemetery. "He ran like a man, but bent like a dog," the boy cried. "He chased me, but on all 4s. His tongue was hanging out. He was laughing." The church bells stopped ringing. The dogs in town either ran away or killed themselves, some headbutting walls, others biting into their own throats. Nathan's body began to rot, slowly. Yet he didn't die. His ribs began to show, not from starvation, but from transformation. His spine arched, knees inverted, his fingers permanently curled into claws. And through it all, his voice returned, not in words, but in barks, deep, guttural, then cries, like a puppy in pain, like 1,000 dogs screaming through one throat. And then came the ultimate curse. He began to understand them. He could hear the dogs he had killed. Their voices filled his head. Feel it, breathe it, become it. They called him Meat man, fur burner, killer of trust. Each night they climbed into his dreams, chewed on his mind, until he couldn't remember where the man ended and the mutt began. 1 month after his return, he vanished again. The asylum staff found his room empty, no broken lock, just claw marks leading out the window. No one saw Nathan again. But on stormy nights, some say they see a hunched figure crawling through the town cemetery, digging into graves, sniffing old collars, dragging leashes behind him. And if you listen closely, you'll hear him, barking, howling, laughing, crying, all at once, etched on a crumbling headstone nearby. Written in what looks like blood. He fed on their pain. They fed on his soul. The van of Nathan. Tommy spotted it just off the highway, a rusty old vehicle, half swallowed by moss and vines. The doors hung open, the back compartment still lined with old, brown-stained blankets. It stank, something between wet dog, rust, and grave soil. But he didn't care. Free metal's free metal, he chuckled, lighting a cigarette. He didn't see the claw marks on the steering wheel. He didn't notice the floorboard lined with teeth, tiny, yellowed, not all of them human. He hotwired it, drove it back to his lot. That night, he couldn't sleep. The dreams start again. Tommy began dreaming of fur, mountains of it. He was drowning in it, suffocating, gasping as paws clawed at his face, cold noses pressed to his skin. Then came the teeth, hundreds, gnashing, tearing, but no blood ever came out, only barking, echoing like laughter through his skull. He woke up vomiting hair, black dog hair. Then he started to hear things in the van, whining, panting, scratching, even though it was empty. He found bite marks on his boots, even though he lived alone. Once he saw something in the rearview mirror, a dog's face stitched together from too many different breeds, its eyes replaced with little black holes that oozed saliva. He blinked. It was gone. Tommy tried to sell the van to a local teen named Craig, who was obsessed with urban legends. Craig drove the van home that night. His mother found him in the backyard the next morning, naked, digging. His nails were torn and bleeding. In front of him were 8 shallow holes, like open graves. When she called his name, he turned. He wasn't blinking. He was wagging his head like a tail. He whispered, "They're not done eating yet." Craig was never the same. At the scrapyard, Tommy started cleaning out the storage compartment in the van. He found a stun gun still sticky with dried blood, a sack with fur stuck inside, a rusted chain with collars attached, and finally, a small box. Inside it were tags, dozens, each with a name. Lucky, Buddy, Rex, Milo, Hope, Tiny. He touched the tags. That night, he couldn't breathe. He heard whimpering in his ears, constant, like it was inside his skull. A sharp pain exploded in his chest, and when he looked in the mirror, he saw scratch marks appearing on his body one by one. Each tag was a soul, and now each one was awake. Stopped. On the 5th night, Tommy's mind was barely holding together. The howls never stopped. They gnawed at the walls of his sanity like rats behind plaster, and he'd clawed at his ears so violently they bled. His sobs were quiet now, tired, dry, animal-like. The van had gone cold. Breath misted in the air, swirling unnaturally. He looked up from the steering wheel, shaking, and saw it again. The black dog. But this time, it wasn't just a vision. It stood right outside, eyes like coals in a dead furnace, its jaw slacked, tongue hanging, thick with foam. It was bloated now, sickly, twice the size it had been. Behind it, the pack had returned. Every breed, every kind, mangled, missing limbs, twisted in death, but standing, staring. Tommy tried to scream, but what came out was not human. A bark. His back snapped first, shoulders jerking violently, limbs contorting as he dropped to all fours. The transformation wasn't physical, not yet, but in his mind, he was no longer a man. He crawled to the side of the van, panting, tongue lolling, fingernails scraping metal. His eyes rolled back. Then the black dog opened its chest. A grotesque cavity split downward, revealing rows of hanging tags like ribs, each one clinking, soaked in old blood. From the darkness inside, Nathan's face emerged, pale and warped. "You drove my curse," it whispered. "Now you ride it." And Tommy did. 3 days later, hikers found the van deep in the woods. The engine had long gone cold. One back door hung open. The interior smelled of wet fur and iron. Tommy's body was curled on the floor like a sleeping dog, hands twisted under his chest, face pressed to the rubber mat. His mouth was wide open, jaw dislocated mid-howl, eyes ruptured. Bits of fur clung to his cheeks, as if he'd tried to tear the skin off his own face in the last moments. His legs were broken backwards at the knees, as if he'd tried to run on all fours and failed. But the worst part, there were scratch marks, hundreds of them, covering the inside of the van. Claw marks, and on the fogged window above him, drawn from the inside, a paw print. Monica Vale, a young journalist, returns to town to investigate strange deaths involving an old van and the ghosts of dogs. She finds Nathan Griggs's old files in the archives of a shelter that burned down nearly 10 years ago. The results leave her speechless. Nathan was once a good man. He cared for, healed, and even smuggled abused dogs out of slaughterhouses, where for-profit dog farms brutally tortured them. He once reported on a large-scale abuse case where more than 50 dogs were starved, beaten, locked in rusty cages, and injected with growth hormones. How long does it take? Nathan is brutally punished by those behind it. One night, they beat him to near death, then took the dogs that Nathan had saved and burned them alive right before his eyes. When the police arrived, they found Nathan curled up in a pool of blood, still screaming hoarsely, "I just want them to live." From then on, Nathan disappeared. No one knows what happened during that time, but when Nathan returned, he was no longer himself. The love for dogs was distorted. From a protector of them, Nathan began to become a dog abuser, as if venting his hatred on the very creatures he once loved. Each electric shock, each trap, each miserable cry of the dog was his way of trying to dispel the helpless memories of that day. But the more he killed, the more he lost his humanity. And then the curse began. Their spirits possessed him, bit by bit, until Nathan was no longer human, nor was he a dog, just an empty entity torn apart by both love and hate. He growled, crawling on all fours, his eyes like a beast. He screamed, "I tried to save them. How did it turn out like this? I'm so tired." Nathan died in the woods, torn apart by a pack of wild dogs. No one dared to go near his body. The police buried him without a funeral, without a headstone. Monica wrote the whole truth about a man who loved animals, was betrayed by humanity, and became a monster transformed by grief. She ended the article with the words, "Not all dog killers are evil. Some were angels before we killed the human in them."